think that a lot of coaches and business owners in general tend to overcomplicate things.
Mm.
They think way too far ahead when really you certainly need to have your goal and your vision for where you want to go with your business when you're starting out or when you are kind of in the middle of it. But once you have that set, don't worry about all the plans along the way. You really just need to worry about that next step. And the ones that are the most clear on that can really like crystallize where they are headed and then quickly decide on like what is the next step.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And we are continuing our series on the coaches that don't suck. And I'm so excited to have you here, Gabriel. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Stoked to be here. Hopefully this we can make this the most valuable 20 minutes you're watching this right now.
Yes, absolutely. So for those that don't know yet, Gabriel is an entrepreneur and growth strategist, helping service-based businesses boost sales with automation and AI. Oh my gosh, some of my favorite topics right now. I've also stepped in as an intrapreneur, including 6 years at Strike Point Media, where he helped drive revenue past $25 million and landing the company on the Inc. 5000. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. We're so excited to have you here. So Gabriel, what do you feel is so important for coaches to know if they want to be successful? Maybe they're thinking about, I want to go all the way up to that Inc. 5000 level, or maybe they're just kind of having a hard time starting up. What would be the one piece of advice you want to make sure that they hear today?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great question. And I found that all my most successful clients ask themselves that question, and they don't just ask themselves, but they'll ask a lot of people to see kind of, okay, other peers in our industry, what are they doing? What are they focused on?
I love that.
6 years I spent at Strike Point Media, actually, a lot of our clients were coaches, specifically in the financial publishing space. So they were teaching people how to trade or invest in kind of like financial publishing. So all from, Morning Brew or Agora Financial, Motley Fool, you name it, a lot of these kind of big time characters, down to people that were just getting started that were like, I've worked on Wall Street. I know I have some really good information that I could share with folks. I just, I don't have anything. I'm just starting my business, right? So I've seen the whole gamut. And I think it's kind of two sides of the same coin. On one side, I think that a lot of coaches and business owners in general tend to overcomplicate things.
Mm.
They think way too far ahead when really you certainly need to have your goal and your vision for where you want to go with your business when you're starting out or when you are kind of in the middle of it. But once you have that set, don't worry about all the plans along the way. You really just need to worry about that next step. And the ones that are the most clear on that can really like crystallize where they are headed and then quickly decide on like what is the next step, I've found to be most successful. And then kind of like pairing with that is a consistency, almost kind of like a Warren Buffett of investing, like treating their business in that way, where they're not just looking for strategy. Strategies are good, but strategies are not usually the answer. Solutions are, in fact, not usually even the answer. It's more about the spirit behind what you're actually implementing. And if you can be consistent over a long period of time, that's how companies like Motley Fool and Agora Financial, like the $2 billion companies, become $2 billion companies. And even, some of the coaches that we look at who might have, a $2 or $3 million business, or a Strike Point that had a $25 million business, it did not start there overnight. It started with building websites for financial advisors for $2,000, but doing a really good job at that and being kind of like consistent over time, extracting those lessons to find, all right, like how can I serve people the best? And really like that makes the most profit, like who's the most profitable person that I can serve and get them the biggest impact. And you usually don't figure that out until you actually get into doing the work.
I love that. I'm in my 8th year of business as a coach, and that's like not common, but everything you just said, I would have said the same thing. There's this, if I was to like say, what does it take to get to 8 years? What does it take to get to, even a few $1,000,000 over that time? Like, it wasn't because I was the sexiest model on the Instagram, definitely. It wasn't because I had this offer that was so sensational and irresistible. It wasn't because I picked the best niche. It was getting in the game and choosing to play. And I call it the NBA, the next best action, because very often I don't know where exactly I'm going to go. And I've invested a ton in like masterminds, coaching, courses. I think there's a certain amount of technical aptitude that will help you, and build the skills. But there was never like this one answer that was going to, have alignment for me, alignment to that future vision, alignment to the capacity that I actually had in the moment. Like if there's a mistake I've made, I'm one of those girls that makes mistakes a couple of times just to make sure it's a mistake. And, the mistake that I made was like choosing a strategy or choosing a method that was beyond the current capacity of supporting the business. So, we've done like a steady growth, but it's been a forced steadying because there were times we were overextended and then we had to kind of like dial it back in. And so many people quit at that point. And I'm like, nah, it's just that I've got to identify that leakage. What do you see as being some of the biggest mistakes that people are making in service-based businesses right now in 2024? Like, what do you think is something that they're not doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, a lot of it goes back to the trying to just grab a strategy off the shelf, thinking, we get a lot of clients that come to us where they bought somebody's program, they've read a book, they're trying to apply a strategy, but they haven't adapted it to their business. And the smart ones will look at a strategy and be like, okay, but that's not how my business works. And they might, even to a fault, come up with reasons why that strategy wouldn't work. And you could name it. It could be doing challenges, webinars. It could be the way that you do your group coaching or your individual coaching calls. Like, it doesn't matter like what the modality is. Like, there's all these different strategies. And I think the biggest problem the biggest mistake that I see often made is those jumping to those strategies, making excuses as to why they won't work, or just assuming you can pull them off the shelf. When what we really need to do is actually get clear on the problem first. And I work with my team on this all the time, where I say like 80% of our time should actually be spent understanding the problem we're trying to solve, or, as like our coach likes to say, the puzzles. So we've adopted that verbiage of like solving puzzles. In fact, I always flip it around. There's the old rap lyric that says, more money, more problems. And I say, more problems, more money. I'm like, bring on the problems, because I tell my team every day, like, we need to embrace those problems, those puzzles, because that's actually the thing that allows us to serve. It's the thing that allows us to make money, to make profit. And so I think if coaches could actually take time understanding all different kinds of problems and puzzles, what is the biggest problem in my business right now that if I solved it would unlock new levels of growth for my business? What's the biggest problem that I could solve for a client? I mean, that's what we do as coaches. And it's why, even though my company is not a coaching company, we actually have coaching calls that are part of the fulfillment of what we deliver, because I see how important it is to help my clients not just implement the tech they need in their business, but actually understand, like, what is the problem that we're solving when we add an AI sales assistant to your business. It's like, oh, you're used
See, that's
to
what I'm
having
seeing.
to respond to leads. Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing so much in this space is like, first everybody was like, so memberships and monthly recurring revenue is all the rage right now in the coaching industry. And it was so funny because like Circle was doing a really good job of their promotional activities. And so it was like, there was a huge amount of the market that was just like, ooh, I'm going to start a Circle community. But then School came on the scene and it's like, ooh, I'm going to trade that almost identical software to go over to School because that's going to solve my problem. And when I actually get into the conversation with most of the coaches that are like migrating between all these different tech solutions, they're not solving the core solution, like the core issue, or even really having a high awareness that they could, which is they don't have lead flow. So because they don't have lead flow, qualified lead flow, and a sales process plugged into that lead flow, it's like you're solving literally the wrong problem, and it's like what everybody is running to because that's where the big advertising campaigns are.
Yeah, and the tech is not going to save you. The tool is not going to save you, and that's the easy knee jerk. If we were to look at the kind of weight loss or fitness industry, that'd be the same thing of thinking like, oh, I can just go under the knife and I'm going to get plastic surgery versus I'm going to put the time into the gym. In that scenario, like, yes, you can get the result. It doesn't work that way in business. That, like you said, you have to have that underlying understanding of what the problem is that we need to be solving, and then let's go attack that problem with the right solution. But if you go too quick to the solution, you're gonna you're probably going down the wrong path.
Yeah, I love it. I would love to just hear your take on automation and AI at this point of things, because I see that as like another area that is extremely, like, it is exploding with activity. And I think one of the outcomes that I've been seeing that sort of surprised me, and I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense, is that with so much like rapid adoption of these technologies, again, thoughtfulness about what is the problem that you're solving with the technology is often not there. And so like I've noticed like there's just this crazy proliferation of like, it was bad content before and now you're posting it 10 times as often and it's still bad. Right? It was an ineffective sales process before, and now you've put this Ferrari engine behind it and it's still not working. So like, what would be your biggest advice for somebody who is like wanting to take their hands off the keyboard, wanting to have all the conveniences that automation and AI can absolutely bring us? What would you say are some principles to help make sure that investment of time and energy creates great experiences or great outcomes in general?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because you're right. You don't want to put a megaphone behind bad marketing, and that's right. What happens if you just go, okay, now I'm going to have AI help me spit out all this content, or I'm going to automate all these things. And as someone who really like studies, implements, and sells automation, I will tell everybody out there, and I will scream from the rooftops, you should not automate what can be systematized. And I know you're a lover of systems. There's a great book out there that if you've not read it, it's Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. Highly recommend for anybody that's listening or watching this. It's really kind of a little bit of a nerdy read, but the author goes through how we actually think of systems. And what I think is great about it, especially for entrepreneurs, especially for coaches, is she has some metaphors to systems that are not at all business related, to thinking of like a forest or a nature preserve as a system, which really allows you to really allows you to detach the ideas and principles behind it. So when it comes to things like AI, I have for the past, I don't know how many years, have said we have a hybrid team at GrowthMap. That means we've got remote folks who are overseas, and we have folks who are here stateside. And now I've added to that to say we also have AI team members as well. And I think that's going to become more and more common. But we have to understand, okay, what are the problems that each one of these folks are going to solve? I don't want to automate what should be systematized. And in order to know what things should be automated, what things should not, what should be handled by AI, what should not, I have to have a very clear understanding of the jobs to be done. When somebody discovers me on Instagram and shoots me a DM, what do I want to have happen next? What is like the first most important thing? So for a lot of our clients, I'll give you a really practical example. A lot of our clients are used to having to respond to leads when leads come in. Somebody fills out a form online, somebody sends a DM through. And that's great because that's high personal touch. The problem with that is it may take them a long time. They may have we call it a slow speed to lead. It may take them 4 hours. It may take them 12 hours. If it's over the weekend, it might take them longer than that to get back to that lead. That's not good. Okay, we could automate that. We could create an automation that sends a canned response. Most people can see and feel when there's a canned response. There's tools out there like ManyChat and things where you could kind of try to like create these chat flows before, but it was very difficult to think of creating a conversational human-like experience for your potential customer using tools like that. Now with AI, we can do that. We can create the human-like experience. So we've got a client, for example, who is a dog trainer, and they had someone who had inquired. The message goes out within 60 seconds. Hey, this is Ava from Sit Meet Sit. Just saw that you inquired about dog training, or did you just fill out a form about dog training? She says yes. That engages the AI. They're going now back and forth, and that prospect is trying to book a time to come in for a free evaluation with her and her dog, and the AI keeps giving up times, right, that don't work. And the person goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm an emergency responder. My schedule's crazy." A chat flow an automation would not be able to handle that, but AI can interpret that context and go, "Hey, thank you so much for your service as a first responder. Don't worry, we'll get you taken care of." And with a couple of back and forths, actually found a time that worked, and then that prospect became a client. That person showed up on the sales calendar before that trainer, that dog training coach could ever would have seen that lead. But just because we do that there, we're not outsourcing all of the other communication to the AI. Just that initial, okay, when the lead comes in, we want that human-like experience, and we want to get them on the calendar ASAP. But then as soon as we do that, we want to pass the baton to Susie in the franchise there, who is actually going to work one-on-one with that client. So It's understanding, what do we want automation to do, and kind of nurture type sequences? Where do we need that human-like response? And what are the things that we absolutely want to, it's worth doing what doesn't scale. It's worth putting in the human touch element, because we know that's where we're going to get the greatest impact for our clients and the greatest result in terms of profitability for the business.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. And, we've tested in our own business. We're not using it anymore, but we were using a very similar tool, AI driven for scheduling. Because we were running a strategy at the time, and this is why we no longer use AI. At the time, we had a really active Facebook group, and as people were coming into the Facebook group, our AI setters would basically say, "Hey, welcome to the group. So glad you're here. Let's book your welcome call." And that worked actually really, really well. And I think this is a really good example of what you were saying earlier about how a strategy is not necessarily going to always be the solution. It worked really well until it didn't. And it stopped working when, Facebook groups got pretty saturated, and the quality of the lead that we were getting through that process was no longer the high quality that it was when we very first started. And so then we decided to, get rid of the cost of having that technology and that particular way of going about the process, and tried something new that was working better. So, I think these solutions are just so powerful, but I think the other piece of it is that as a business owner, you need to stay on top of what is the outcome or the result. I love your distinction of don't just automate for the sake of automating, or believe that the tech or the tool is the solution. The tech or the tool empowers the solution. So if you're no longer using a solution, 100%. We are no longer doing the welcome call, then don't just leave the tech there. You've got to care about your people.
What I love about that for you is that the underlying problem you're trying to solve there, or puzzle, is the same, right? So it is, we have someone new in our community, we want to welcome them, and we want to fast track them to, ascending to becoming a client ultimately. We want to make them feel warm and fuzzy. We want to truly welcome them, and the best way we're going to be able to serve them is if they become a client. How do we fast track that? And so that problem doesn't go away, but how you solve that problem might, right? Where you said
1,000%.
Originally, anybody coming into the Facebook group was a perfect fit. So yes, we want to spend the time hopping on the call. And this is a really great way of us being able to do that, to be able to fast track that. But okay, when things change, as they always do, as entrepreneurs, we have to adapt and go, okay, well, the problem's still there, but now I need a different system. What does that look like? Maybe I need to triage people coming into the group before I offer the call. Maybe there's some ways to automate that. Maybe I have some team members that come in. So it's just coming up now with a new.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So Gabriel, I love asking people, what are 3 things that a coach should make sure they do to not suck?
Yes. The 3 things you should do to not suck. I'll share with you what one of my first mentors shared with me. I started my first photography business, or my first business, which was a photography business 18 years ago, I think. And I remember sitting down with my mentor at El Pollo Loco, because that was the only thing I could afford at the time. I couldn't afford a coach, but I could afford a $2 BRC, bean rice cheese burrito. So I was like, hey, Dane, you're a successful photographer. You're an author. You've done all these things. Like, I want to get started in business. What in the heck am I supposed to do? Do I need to start my LLC? Like, buy these courses? Like, what do I do? And he's like, whoa, Gabriel. He's like, slow down. And he gave me 2 things. So I'm going to give you 2 things. He said, you need to go take 100,000 photos, and you need to read this book. And he gave me the E-Myth Revisited. And I said, okay, all right, I can do those 2 things. And I did those 2 things that year. And within a year, I actually ended up hiring an E-Myth coach. So I went through the E-Myth Business Mastery coaching program back then. That was my first kind of significant investment. It caused a lot of turmoil and discussion between me and my newlywed wife, who's like, why are we going to be spending so much money on this thing and you're not making money in the business yet? But it turned out, within a year I was making 6 figures in that photography business. And really the idea behind, I do think you should read the E-Myth, whether it's E-Myth or not. I do think Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, for me, probably has kind of like actually surpassed E-Myth. So I would put them neck and neck, but I would say like one of those 2 books, because it really gives you an understanding, like a systematic way of thinking about business, which is important, because the entrepreneurial myth, the E-Myth is that you're good at doing a thing. You're good at coaching people. You're good at helping them navigate through problems. So I should start a coaching business. That is the myth, because the reality is there's a lot of other things like marketing and getting leads and finding clients and operations and growing team that's also required. And so you just need to have that knowledge and understanding, which even when you first read it isn't going to make a whole lot of sense until you actually get into action, but it helped me a ton. And then the second piece was, you need to get really freaking good at your craft. Like, you need to go take 100,000 photos. Like, if you're going to be selling photography, you need to go do this a lot. So if you're a coach, you need to go help a bunch of people. One of our clients is one of the top coaches in the music industry. He's worked with Keith Urban, Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus, Paramore, like all these, right? And Brett's been doing that for over 25 years. So he didn't start with those folks. And even when he first worked with Taylor was before, she was dating Travis Kelce, and where she's at now is a long time ago. Like, he's been putting in the time, not just honing his craft, but the craft of actually being able to develop other vocal artists. And because he's done that for so long, he's got a group now with thousands of students who go through his programs, who work with his, he's developed other coaches under him. So you got to get really good at your craft. And for most coaches, that is getting, helping their clients get really clear on the problems that they're solving. Like, if you did nothing else than that, and you got really good at being able to actually identify the biggest constraint, the biggest problem in somebody's life, you're going to be an excellent coach.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. All of those things. Gabriel, what's the best way for people to follow you?
Yeah, hit me up on Instagram. It's just at Gabriel Ryan on Instagram. And if there's anything I can do to serve you, just shoot me a DM.
Amazing. And we'll make sure that we have the books you referenced and everything in the show notes. And hey, listener, don't forget to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the show so that others will be able to find it. And I am certain that Gabriel shared something here today that you've got 3 friends who would really benefit from hearing it. So go ahead and send a link to this episode to them through the DM, or send them a text message so that they can get the benefit of this really powerful conversation. And we will see you guys next time.